So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 2023 Artist Salon. My name is Kathy Tycholis. I'm the Richmond Art Gallery's Education and Public Programs Coordinator. And I'm here today to host our Artist Salon program and to moderate your questions. First of all, I want to thank you from wherever you're joining us this evening and supporting the Richmond Art Gallery's programs. And on behalf of the Richmond Art Gallery Association, I would like to welcome you to this program hosted by Richmond Art Gallery, which is located on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Hunkaminam-speaking peoples. These are the nations that lived along the Fraser River Delta, including the Musqueam. And I'm appreciative to work on these lands and to bring you these amazing programs for artists that is made possible with funding from the City of Richmond's Art and Culture Grant Program. In a few moments, I will welcome our guest artist presenter, Sonja Ahlers, who is also the Richmond Art Gallery's current exhibiting artist, as you can see behind me, with her Classification Crisis exhibition on now until November 5th, 2023. But before we begin, a few housekeeping notes about the program and about tonight's session. So for those of you who might be new to the Artist Salon, this program is a monthly series of free talks by arts professionals held on the last Wednesday of each month from February to November. The goal of the program is to offer visual artists a mix of professional development tips and advice, along with artists' personal stories and experiences to help strengthen and build our artist community, while we encourage artists to keep on making and growing in your art practice. The Salon also does exist as a private Facebook group. This provides resources for artists in the Lower Mainland mostly, with regular posts about artist calls for exhibitions, for residencies, professional development opportunities, local arts events, and it also serves as a space for you to post your events. So I do welcome you to join the Facebook group and join the community and share your events with us. And you can also find out more about the Facebook group, as well as previously recorded sessions of this program, all on the Richmond Art Gallery's website. I'm ready to introduce our exciting guest artist for tonight. Sonja has been so lovely to work with for the past few months at the Richmond Art Gallery. So I'm really happy she was able to join us tonight. I think she's got a lot to share, a lot of knowledge to impart. And as you know, someone who started off as an artist, kind of doing her own thing in a small town, she's been able to continue working in the arts with a wide variety of visual artists, of musicians, and writers. And I just think that is amazing. We all know how hard it is to keep working. So I'm just so happy that she's here with us and to just kind of tell us how she did it and how she keeps on going. So I think that you'll have a lot to share to our artist community out there tonight. So I'm just going to read a really short bio for those of you who might not know Sonja, and then I'll let her take over. So Sonja Ahlers is a visual artist and poet based in Victoria on the unceded territories of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, now known as the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. Since the early 90s, Ahlers has worked primarily in book and book-adjacent formats in a medium that she calls visual poetry. She is the author of Temper Temper, 1998, and Fatal Distraction, 2004, both on Insomniac Press, The Cells, withdrawn on Quarterly in 2010, and Swan Song on Conundrum Press, 2021. She was a key contributor to Rookie Mag from 2011 to 2015, and just this year, she's released Classification Crisis, a new illustrated book featuring comprehensive survey of her career to go along with her exhibition of the same name at the Richmond Art Gallery. So welcome, Sonja. I'm going to go hide in the background and monitor the questions. So again, feel free to send your questions anytime throughout the session. You don't have to wait till the end. Sonja will do her presentation and then I'll come back and go through your questions. So thank you so much for being here, Sonja, and I'll let you take it away.
Oh, thanks, Kathy, for organizing everything. All right, where do I start? Okay, this is one of the oldest surviving collages I own, and 1990. And I'm showing this because I wanted to just show you how seeds get planted. So I'm showing this 17 magazine because later on in my career, I ended up working for Rookie, which is also a teen magazine. And this is Rebecca Schaefer. She was murdered by a stalker, and I made art about it. So I glued this onto a file folder. So there's me and my office supplies, making art from office supplies. And then this other image here, this really old collage, I was decorating some school, like a 3-ring binder divider for a program I was doing. I was studying anthropology at the time, 1990, and at a community college. And I was very off track with my art. I really disliked the course. So I think I tried to entertain myself with this collage. And so, yeah, you'll see like there's Keith Haring's shoes with paint splattered. There's a ballerina. So there's like there's a seed planted there. And then there's like an image of the Beastie Boys. And sidebar, I ended up meeting one of the Beastie Boys because he's married to Kathleen Hanna. So this stuff it's just weird how it's not an intention. It's amazing what art will do. It's like it tells your future. Okay, so now I'm just going to read a quote. I transcribed this quote from a documentary called How to Draw a Bunny from 2002. I did this last week. So what I'm reading is, it's actually, sorry, I have to move that so I can read it. Okay, it's a transcription, so it's a little clunky. Okay, so I feel that this quote relates to my core practice, which is correspondence art and mail art. So he said, correspondence art consists of compressions of ideas and images into envelopes. I have spent my entire life condensing in a conceptual art fashion and fitting things to fit envelope sizes and folding things to fold into envelopes. I've gone through this ritual day after day, year after year for many, many years. That's my working process when I'm in my studio. I'm not static at all. I'm completely fluid. I just go from one idea to the next. It's a complete flow of the imagination. I deal with things that are constantly being chopped up and shuffled and moved around because I'm not a painter, I'm a collagist. But it gets to some point where what can you do with it after you've done it? That's why I began putting things into envelopes. I have this stockpile of materials. So I just put them into envelopes and mail them off to everybody everywhere. I'm very fond of the idea of the message in the bottle and the chance of it being found or never being. I mean, that's pure romance. But once again, that was a dilemma. What does one do with one's sculpture or one's painting or one's drawing? So I solved that problem by chopping them all up into little pieces and mailing them to people. That does sound a little ominous. Okay. All right, so here are some of my chopped up pieces. This is all actually mail I've received. I don't have a lot of my own mail because obviously it's out in the world doing I don't know what. This is from my archive, bundles and bundles of mail that generated from sending mail, and it's kind of a miracle. Okay, so yeah, I was talking earlier just about being in school, doing an anthropology class that I didn't want to be doing. And I got back on track with my art by writing letters. So I was obsessively writing letters, and that was my art. And on the side here is just some folded papers, just sort of referencing the Ray Johnson quote. And there's actually Winona Ryder and some of my loopy high school writing, and Sid Vicious folded up. Okay, so more mail. I just wanted to show, this is really, I love this photo. It's Jeffrey Tomlin Hood took this photograph of scattered mail, again, generating just so much mail in my lifetime. It's incredible what will happen when you create a network. I wanted to show this image because this was mail that actually was given back to me from my pen pal Stephanie, and she lived a block away from me. So just to let you know how much of an introvert I am, I wasn't able to hang out with Stephanie in person. I would mail her letters down the street. And I was looking at this earlier, and it looks like I tried to send this one piece with American postage, and Canada Post was nickel and diming me for 40 cents. So yeah, I did a lot of stuff like that back then. Okay, so moving on from mail, I still kept writing letters, but then I started working in kind of ready-made. I started altering notebooks and working in any blank book I could get my hands on. And this is just a collection of that. One of them's wrapped up in a Destroyer t-shirt that my friend Sydney illustrated, Sydney Hermont. And what else is there? La Femme Nikita on the side of a stamp album. And this piece in the middle, this is like a Moleskine book. Is it Moleskine? It was actually in a show. I mean, what I was going to need to say here is I was making this work for myself. I didn't show anybody except for that Moleskine book that ended up being in a show. So moving on from here, this is, okay, here we go. Zines gave me more of a reason to send mail because I started making the zines. So I did live in Montreal for a while in 1991. And I was exposed to Drawn and Quarterly's autobiographical comics and cartoons, by the cartoonists. It's debatable, comic artist, cartoonist. And I know that influenced me to start making my own books. And I couldn't have done it without my friend from high school, Susan Farmer, who's here, because she's very organized. She loves puzzles. So she helped me immensely to organize my own messiness, like my own chaos. And so I put the Beatrix Potter book because Beatrix Potter has been such a massive influence from childhood. And I just wanted to show the scale of these little books. I've always worked small. I didn't think about that, but Godfrey, the curator of the show, pointed that out to me. I didn't make the connection of how small I was working. Get Out of My Room, that was one of the zines. I also really like to experiment and not title book covers or zine covers. That was just, sorry guys, like moving on. Okay. This is just a sample of one of the zines, the interior of how messy the interior was and how I was cramming space. And here I'm actually referencing correspondence. I thought about writing you, I did, but I can't do it. I'm really tired of giving everything away. I can't give you everything. And I'm talking about the University of Dunkin' Donuts. I think I'll apply. Yeah, early work. That's a shopping cart in the shape of a chair. So very early, really very messy, as I said. Another sample. This is a little more organized. Poetry there. Yeah, so with these books, with the network, the Pen Pal network, I would basically send anyone I felt a connection to, an artist, musician, poet, whose work was out in the world and who might have a PO box, I would send them my zines. And I'm still friends with some of those people to this day, which is incredible. This is another, okay, so during this time period, I was in my early mid-20s. I was cleaning offices at night for a while, and I think I saw this signage over someone's desk. It's like, to me, this is like an early meme. We're making real progress. Things are getting worse at a slower rate. I just thought it was hilarious. And that's Carol Baker on the side. I was referencing a lot of pop culture is my whole life. It's my existence, pop culture. Okay, so those little zines I just showed you over time. So one of them I would send copies to this poet that I really loved. I loved her work. Her name's Lynn Crosby, and she really liked my work. And I was beyond flattered. And so she included me in an anthology called Click, Becoming Feminists. And it was pretty amazing. I think Pamela Des Barres was in the anthology. She wrote I'm With the Band, and Soo-Kin Lee, and a whole bunch of other, I really should be more brushed up on this, but I haven't talked about that anthology for a while. Anyway, I had some work in that, and from there, things were just snowballing, and Insomniac Press became interested in publishing these older zines in a book format. So these are some old copies. I wasn't thrilled with the cover. I didn't design the cover. And so I was altering these. One of them, the middle one, is actually spray painted with some puffy stickers. And I still alter them to this day. I buy my own books off the internet, which is surreal. And I can't tell you how weird it is to do that. Okay, so this was 1998. Hopefully that's clear. I was going to say too about Temper Temper is people either really loved that book or they hated that book. And I couldn't really deal with either response. So it took me a while to do my next book, which is on the left, Fatal Distraction, that came out in 2004. And I started doing more digital work at that point. I took a course at the Vancouver Community College, a digital graphic design program for the year. And it really helped me with my work, like just learning. I am self-taught, but I have picked up some skills along the way. So that was pretty amazing. And I included Swan Song beside it. That's my most recent book. To me, it feels like a continuum of the black and white work I was doing in my early zines, because a lot of it's cut and paste and scanning. I cannot live without my scanner. I use it almost every day. And I do a lot of my collages in Photoshop, but everything starts cut and paste by hand. So, and then I take it in and clean things up. So I just wanted to show just that you can put a book out in 2004 and 19 years later, you can keep going with the same material, with the same voice of the black and white imagery, if that makes sense. So there's that. And in between those books, I actually moved to the Yukon and I started, well, I'll talk about that in a minute, but between the 19 years of those two other books, I did put out this book, The Selves, in 2010, and Drawn and Quarterly published it, which was a dream come true for me because I was so influenced by the early, like what I was mentioning earlier about the autobiographical comic artists like Julie Doucet and she was my main influence. So she did Dirty Plot, a comic, and we were actually pen pals for a while, which was amazing. And this book was mostly color. So I kind of think of it as a standalone in a way. And I've got a couple sample pages. So yeah, I was really happy with this book. So this led to, okay, actually I should mention how Drawn and Quarterly found a copy of Fatal Distraction and contacted me directly about working with them. So that was I just wanted to kind of talk a bit about just how one thing leads to another. And that email, when they contacted me, it changed my life. And I was in Mexico at the time. I was really sick in Mexico and got this email at like an internet cafe. And it was amazing. So, okay, just here again, me and my 3-ring binders. This is how I organize all my art. This binder was made, I think I was working on it in 2006, 2007. And that's when I left Vancouver and moved to the Yukon. And that my life changed again. So I was because of a breakup, and I was hitting the wall in Vancouver. I couldn't keep going. I was doing too many things, craft fairs, working in film, doing set deck. And I ended up working on a lot of horror movies, and I was just cleaning up fake blood all the time. So that's what I was doing to support myself as an artist for a spell. And then, like I said, I hit my wall. So I moved to the Yukon, and it changed my life again. And having that nature and the space and the peace, it rejuvenated me, and I was able to keep going. So this is an image of Tavi Gevinson, and at the time she was a blogger. She had a blog called Style Rookie that she started when she was 11 years old. Some of you may know her, but just quickly, I'll just give you a little bio here. She's in her bedroom. This is from a New Yorker, and a friend of mine said, Sonja, your book is in Tavi's bedroom. So if you can see the little stack of books there, the selves is sitting there. And I didn't know she had, anyway, it was a gift from a contact. It's a long story. It's one thing leads to another. I gave a copy of Fatal Distraction to a writer, a contact, hoping she would review the book for the New York Times, because I was delusional at the time. And meaning it didn't quite fit. Does that make sense? Anyway, so she and I stayed in touch. Her name's Marissa Meltzer. She just wrote a book about Glossier. She had a copy of the selves, and she said, I'm going to gift this to Tavi for her middle school graduation. So because I knew she had this book, it gave me some, I don't know how to describe this. It's like, I felt some courage to contact her. I felt emboldened, is that the word? To contact her, because I started hearing rumors she was going to start an online magazine for teenagers inspired by Sassy magazine. And I was so excited by this idea. And remember the 17 magazine from the beginning of the talk, how the teen magazine has been such a huge influence for me. So I'm going to go back for a second, just finish that thought. I reached out to Tavi, and she got back to me in 15 minutes. And next thing I know, we're working together. And again, that changed my life. So for the online magazine called Rookie, I started doing digital illustration work for them. And here's two samples from that time. This is about 2011, end of 2011 is when I started doing the illustration work. And I had no idea what I was doing. I just talk about fake it till you make it. I can't believe what I was able to figure out on my own. I just made it work, because I'm not an illustrator. I'm a collagist, and I just had to make it work. So the image on the left is actually, that was one of the last illustrations I did for Rookie in probably 2015. Because I was, anyway, I'll finish that in a minute. But that is an illustration I did for Zadie Smith, if you can believe it, which is incredible. And it was about how she doesn't keep a diary. And the illustration on the right was just Lana Del Rey. I'm not sure what the story was. I think it was like good girl, bad girl, and kind of like related to sex. And I put like the cherry cake. And I remember doing that collage at about 4:00 in the morning. So anyway, that was my life back then. And so the website Rookie blew up, and within a year, Drawn Quarterly was publishing a yearbook. So there were 4 total. I was brought on as the lead designer. We didn't even know what title. Nobody knew what to call me. It was like, it's like vibes, like they wanted my vibes. We were joking about that. So we came up with the term lead designer. And so the book on the first book, they needed a cover in a week, like 1 week, to figure out a cover for a project that it was like no one had, we were starting with from scratch. And I did not sleep that week. So, but it turned out, it's incredible. The cover's amazing. I worked on it with another designer, so it wasn't me alone, but we figured this out together. Tracy at Drawn Quarterly, and Tavi was kind of monitoring, like with the 3 of us together, we're one brain working. And so the last cover is yearbook 4, and that cover took me, I think I did 75 drafts. It just wasn't coming together, and I was I was having, there was a lot of stuff going on in my family. So that's another long story, which I'll touch on in a moment. So those are those books. Okay, so while all that stuff's going on, I'm doing illustration. I had a part-time job at Yukon Archives. I was doing projects. Things were getting kind of out of control. But during all this time, starting in the mid 90s, I was making bunnies. And you can see the first one, it's incredibly crude. And the transformation of them over time is so fascinating to me. Just wanted to show you that timeline of these because I'll talk a bit more about bunnies. Yeah, I started to dress them, not unlike a Beatrix Potter situation. This is one of my favorite bunnies. I don't know who bought it, but I didn't keep track of anything. She was the sweetest little bunny. Anyway, that one. And okay, so these ones, I started cranking these out seasonally. And I should say, because Kathy wanted me to talk a bit about how I liked having a craft item and how you support yourself. So the early bunnies, I would just give them away and then or trade them. And then I remember putting a price tag like $25, and that kind of went up over time, obviously, because that's what happens. And it was, yeah, I was able to start charging quite a bit of money for them. And I was doing a lot of Etsy sales in around 2008, which was amazing because of like what was going on in the economy. I couldn't believe that I was able to sell these bunnies after that crash. Yeah, so I simplified them and I started calling them peepers, which I don't know how I felt about that. I think I started to kind of dissociate at that time. I just, it was weird to be cranking out a craft item and then still making art. I was having some issues because I felt like the craft item was taking away from my fine art, yet I wasn't really doing fine art at the time. But that shifted shortly, as I'll keep going here. Okay, so this is a blanket I made out of pure frustration as an act of rebellion. I was keeping scraps, the Angora scraps from the bunnies, because bunnies are Angora bunnies. It's like turning the bunny back into a bunny. And then I was taking the scraps. I'm like, I'm going to take these scraps and turn them back into fine art, these craft scraps, and make fine art again. I'm going to make a textile. And I cannot tell you the satisfaction I felt making this blanket. And on the right, that's it. It was a work in progress at that point. It was actually hung in a show at the Yukon Art Center. I'm still working on this blanket to this day. I love it. It's one of my favorite pieces of art. Oh, I'm just showing this as kind of like a commercial break because these are really bad photos of my fridge up in the Yukon. I just wanted to show you how I figure out collage ideas. I use like earth magnets and load up the fridge with images because appliances are so ugly. And in case it isn't obvious, I do all my art at home in my kitchen and all over the house. So I just wanted to share that. Oh, and my aluminum foil ball is on top of the fridge on the right. I've been working on this aluminum foil ball, R.I.P. Pee Wee Herman, since 2009. Yes, so that's that. Just wanted to share. Okay, so I was talking a moment ago about my fine art career, and not that I ever set out to be a fine artist, but when you're making art, it's like, okay, you're trying to, I don't know how I should get into that. Anyway, this piece, Stairway to Heavy, this was in a show at the Yukon Art Center. And this is probably the biggest piece of art I've ever made. It's a found object. This is 2012, by the way, too, in the height of like the Rookie, the cranking out the bunnies. And then I somehow was able to pull this off with a bunch of like a lot of help. A lot of friends helped. It was a found piece from the college, the woodworking program. They have to make a staircase as part of their program. And I had some intel about the staircase and was able to borrow one. It was reconstructed in the gallery. It's a long story. But just, yeah, it was so beautiful. And I love this piece. It doesn't exist anymore. It was deinstalled and kind of given back to the earth. Okay, so there was a video playing of Kate Bush. It's like a slowed down Wuthering Heights video. You can find it on YouTube. It's like 36 minutes long. It's so haunted and beautiful. And then on the floor, it's hard to see, but there's like lots of pennies. It's like a penny collection. So I was able to keep making fine art. And I think it's because of the Yukon, because I had all that time and space and support. Again, okay, 2013. This is a group show again. Just wanted to show you. I still can't believe I was able to pull this off, but things were it was busy time. And I think I was really starting to burn out. So 2013, larger than life, contemporary art from the Yukon. It was beautifully curated and installed. I had nothing to do with this installation. The work was sent to the gallery and they put it together. And this is another shot. They did an amazing job. All those things hanging on the wall, they're almost like another craft item. It's all reclaimed, found fur from the Yukon. There's a lot of trapping that goes on up there that I have a lot of issues with. And I was wanting to, like, this was basically heading to the garbage, and I got in the way, and I took over the fur and the toe shoes. So a lot of my art is garbage. Okay, so now we're at 2014. This is when I hit my wall. And these are bunnies they're embalmed in beeswax. Sorry, my cat's here. Okay, he's being good. I thought sometimes he brings mice in the house, so it's my concern. But he's not. Hasn't killed anything today. Anyway, I embalmed these in beeswax, and I felt like it was like a death of some kind. Like I just thought, oh, I'm never going to make these again. And they're actually beeswax, and dipping a textile into beeswax is amazing. It hardens like you would not believe. These are some of my favorite objects. So I moved back to Victoria in 2014 because my mother was re-diagnosed with cancer, and I never thought I'd move back to Victoria. I did not want to leave the Yukon. Okay, so now I'm back in Victoria, and everything came to a standstill. My entire career basically just like hit the skids. I can't believe I just said that. I was helping my mom, and she was extremely ill, and this went on for a while. I moved into her home, and she was a bit of a hoarder. And it took me 3 years to deal with her stuff. And one of the pieces, I found this she bought this piece from me in 1999, the one on the right, from my very first show, called Everything I Own Is in This Room. And everything I own was in that room in the gallery. And anyway, it's this kind of a surviving piece from that period. And I didn't say this earlier, but I do recycle a lot of my art. I also destroy a lot of it. So I actually don't have a ton of art. And yeah, I'm so critical, and I'm such a perfectionist. I will destroy things. So I kind of reclaimed this piece. I mean, it was kind of like a gift from my mom. Like, hey, I still have this. Like, it's yours now. And I ended up using the image in the show quite a bit in the Richmond Art Gallery show that's up right now. And I did the 2022 version on the left with the Sistine Chapel hands, like, and God created man. And this image is appropriated from Beatrix Potter, shocking. And I just wanted to show you the source. It's a tiny little image there. I hone in on details. That's just always what I've done. And yeah, so there's that. Okay, this is just me. These are horrible images. If any advice, get yourself a really good camera and document your work. This is not good unless I did this with my phone. This is me in my mom's house. She's gone at this point. I'm just like entertaining myself. I'm not showing art. I'm just in my own world. I think this is 2016, 2015. That's my collection of Sweet Dream magazines, or sorry, not, I'm back in the teen zines, Sweet Dream books. And my mother's collection of rolling pins in the fireplace. So yeah, that was fun. I had a lot of space to myself to do things like this while I tried to rebuild my art career. And it's just a binder image of a 3-ring binder, me working on the archive, just collecting images of eyes. So I was just toiling away. I just kept working. And just an installation in my kitchen, just working out ideas on the wall, on the left, that is. And I ended up using quite a bit of that imagery in the Richmond show for the rabbit hole installation. All women, and yeah, that's how it started. I think this is 2017. And this on the left, or the right side, is Simonetta. She was the muse for Botticelli for The Birth of Venus. She's on her side with all the cars on her head. Love her. Okay, and I started doing a lot of watercolors, as grieving the death of my mother. And I should also mention there were multiple family members and friends who died in a really short period of time. And looking back, I was probably out of my mind with grief. I just didn't know it at the time. And so this is just more of the watercolor collages I was doing during this period. And again, this is kind of ode to crafts people. It's the lace maker, Vermeer's The Lace Maker. I really love that image. So beautiful. Okay, so now we're at 2020. Awesome time. And I was able to finally start working on my 3rd book of the series, the Temper Temper Fatal Distraction Swan Song. So this is how I build a book. I put out cords on the wall, like strings, and clip using little tiny closed pegs to clip the papers up. And again, Susan Farmer, who I've been friends with since we were 16, was helping me edit and put it together. So I just want to let you see my little office working on a book. And this is me slowly starting to show work again in 2022. Yeah, the Machosen Art Lab. Is that what it's called? Machosen Art Lab? Yeah, it's defunct now, or it's on hiatus, but it's an old schoolhouse. And I was showing some work in the sort of a foyer hallway. And this is just, yeah, it was a really good practice for the Richmond Art Show, just to start to figure things out again. And I mean, I felt like I was starting from scratch all over. And just, I don't know, I paint these all the time, very therapeutic. On the left are their watercolors, and then on the right, I started experimenting with ink, painting with ink in the spring. So yeah, they're like rabbit holes, literally. And one more slide. And this is just me. I always like to show a workspace scene in that office. This is the same room with the swan song images that were on the wall. I like to change up my workspace all the time, back to that Ray Johnson quote. It's just like a lot of fluidity, and I'll just go between just like, oh, I want to do book stuff, or I'm going to do some paintings. Like, it just depends. It's mood related. Okay, so that's all. And now questions. Okay, there we go.
That was awesome. That was great. Thank you, Sonja.
Kathy, I did it for you. You were like, I have one question. We need, and I actually wrote out some tips and suggestions that I can read out for anyone after. I'm happy if we have time. Happy to do that.
I'm sure we'll have time for that. But yeah, we definitely have some questions to start us off with. But first of all, just thanks. It's so great to see your process and get a sense of your thinking process all the way through. It really, as someone who's been living with your exhibition now for a little while, like, it really, brings things to, a lot more clarity to me. So thank you. First question is from Chris. Hello and thanks for tonight. I just wanted to see if you had any advice for us that are just starting their artistic journey.
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah, I guess start small. I think starting small really, I don't know. Like I was saying in my little zines, working small, trying to create your own network somehow, like even if it's just one person, like, and just start to move from there. And I mean, you can find, like, with the mail art, I find that's really helpful to start to get your work out there, like just to kind of like, it's like wading into the ocean slowly. I find that really helps. What else, Kathy? What else can I say?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anyone out there that maybe doesn't quite know the whole mail art scene, or maybe the zine scene, which is also very connected. If you want to maybe talk a bit of just how did you get started with zines? I mean, you mentioned, how mail art merged into that, but there is a whole culture behind that maybe not everyone's aware of.
This is true. Okay, so yeah. I just feel like the zine is a really amazing way to contain ideas and images and text. And it's like its own gallery, and you can distribute it yourself. It's like the whole DIY culture. I didn't even mention do it yourself culture, which is hugely that's how I've done this. And I mean, I am self-taught as well. So zines are a great way to start. It's like its own gallery is how I see it. And then you can do zine fairs. They're all over the place now. I'm amazed, like doing tabling. And you start to meet a lot of people that way. It's incredible what can happen if you go to well, there are conventions. There's TCAF, the Toronto Comics and Arts Festival, and I went to that a couple of years ago, and that really helped me get back into the swing of things. And so those are, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you're also welcome to contact me directly if I can help with suggestions for that. But yeah, when you're starting out, I don't know, just trust your process, trust your own process. I find like that's a big part of what I've done is try to figure out what works for me and to trust that. Okay. Hopefully that helps.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I just want to touch on one thing you mentioned about working small, because you mentioned that a few times.
I know.
I'm curious if working small was because of your actual space, like starting off as a teenager, you only have your own bedroom, but then, was it because you're living in an expensive city and that's all you can afford? Which I know a lot of artists do, tend to work small because of that, especially in Vancouver. But was it more of a conscious thing of like, no, I just really like the more intimate, personal size to work with?
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great question, because yeah, I know it was like economic at the time for me in my early 20s. Like I just had a desk space and that was my confined area. And honestly, 30 years later, I miss that. It's like, oh, I think I'm going to go back to this very confined space. And I get so much pleasure. I was just making a zine, actually preparing for the workshop this weekend, Kathy, for the teens. I was making some zines to demos, and I couldn't stop. It was so addictive. I'm like, oh, I was just cutting things out, like the tiniest little text from my typewriter. And I was like, this is what I used to do. And that's why I feel everything has come full circle. So I mean, you saw the staircase that I had, and that I wouldn't be able to store that. Like, that's impossible, especially now in this day and age. But yeah, I think small is beautiful. I think it's good to do that. I think it's good to start there and see what happens, because things snowball and they grow, and you just don't know what's going to happen if you just have to start.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome.
A couple of questions from Joel. First one is, always delighted to see behind the veil of an artist whose work has had much meaning to me. I'm curious, with this type of work, do you ever experience writers or collagers block? Does that happen, or is just committing to doing the digging and seeing what reveals itself to you?
Yeah, I get blocked constantly. There's actually in the show right now, we have there's a giant installation on the floor of crumpled up paper. It was from me. I crumpled up my entire manuscript from one of my books. Like, there were the photocopied pages, but I did it in absolute frustration. I showed you that blanket earlier, like the blanket that I was sewing out of bunny scraps. That was pure frustration. Yeah, it's amazing what will happen when you're frustrated if you just keep pushing to get through it, to get through the block, no matter what. And just, again, start small. Like, I don't know, Joel, do you feel like, are you having a block of some kind? Or I don't know if a detail will help, or did I answer the question?
I think so. I mean, I think every artist at some point experiences block, and I think we just all deal with it in different ways. So it's always good to hear how other people get through it, I think.
I think it's push through.
But connected to that, another question from Joel was, how do you know when a collage work is finished? Do you have the same relationship to it, say, as musicians or writers, where you always feel like you want to tweak it or change things?
Oh, yeah. Well, again, that Ray Johnson quote about the fluidity, and I don't know. I feel okay. Susan, who's here, who helped me with the zines, we used to have a band, and I became obsessed with songwriting. Like, when is a song finished? Like, and just the act of like writing music, and which I had no idea what I was doing. Susan's the musician. I just had lyrics, but it was such an amazing experience to just craft a song. I feel like I learned so much from that. And I was a horrible musician, which is why I don't do it anymore. I'm a failed musician. So I applied that to what I could control, which is making a collage or doing some writing. And for some reason, with a collage, I just know in my gut, like, I just feel this intuitive, it's like a click. I just know when it's done. But that said, I will work on a collage for 15 years. Like, I'll just go back and I'll add to it, and it feels like it's alive, like over time. Like, I keep a lot of my work, and I hide it. I stash it in boxes and whatnot. And I'll drag stuff out from years ago, and I'll keep working on it. So that's, again, back to the binders. What I showed earlier is those plastic sleeves, and I can change things all the time because I'm not gluing things down in those plastic sleeves. Like, they're just kind of sliding around, and that is immensely, that's very satisfying for me, because it's like a commitment thing. Like, I have issues with committing and gluing things down. So there's just ways around it. There's certain things you can do to figure out what's done, what's not done, keeping things fluid and moving. And yeah, okay, that's enough.
Well, no, it's good, because it kind of connects to another question I see here from Claudia. it's incredible how you really allow yourself, even though you say you are a perfectionist, to get in there among your production and break down each piece and morph them constantly. My journals contain interesting things, but they are hidden in those pages, so I feel stuck. So her question is, do you rip journals and notebooks and put all the good stuff together and look at it? So, I mean, you do have all your binders in the gallery. Can you maybe talk about, like, where does all the stuff that ends up in the binders, does that come from? Is it from your journals? Is it just from random things you see? Like, how do you bring it all together that then becomes your collage work?
Let's see, where do I find images, like in my throughout my life? Like, where am I like sourcing imagery? Or
Or do you ever hide them away and then never see them again? Or are the binders constantly changing? Or like, yeah, like, how do you use those materials?
yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like I feel like a janitor a lot of the time with my work, and I know where everything is. Like, I have like a one of those visual memories where it's like I'll have something like the size of a stamp, and I will know where that image is in my stuff. And I think it's because I'm always handling, I'm always sorting, constantly going like, oh, I gotta find that thing, or just and cleaning, like kind of like tending to it, like tending to the source material. Like it's like my pet or something. I don't know. That's just how I am with stuff. Like I I it's maybe it's over care, or anyway. I don't know if you, I kind of, from the question I got about I kind of got the idea of cutting up your own journals. Like,
Yeah.
do source my own material. Those early zines that I was showing earlier, I was actually, I should have said this, but I was mining my own diaries, like from they were like teenage diaries. So, and I was transcribing. I was using a typewriter. I was transcribing. I was just looking for I was just mining myself. So I find that is amazing to like go through your own materials and your own stuff and just block everything else out and just look at what you've got and kind of learn how to edit yourself, if that helps. Does that answer the question at
Yeah,
all?
definitely. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Question about your use of images from Tracy N. So if you can comment, and I know I've heard people in the gallery asking this too, about copyright issues with the use of images. And I know all collage artists encounter this question at some point. So, well, how do you think about that in terms of your use of images and copyright?
Yeah, I know. I can't believe I'm not in jail. Like that image of Diana on behind you, Kathy, that's oh golly, it's it's a copyrighted image. I kind of fly under the radar. I think because I'm so obscure and I'm an outsider, I don't think people care about what I'm doing. So I've kind of like, I'm a bit kind of a weasel. Like, I feel like I've really kind of it's not cool. Like, I know that I'm trying to do more original work so that I don't have to deal with this anymore. Like the ink drawings and paintings I was doing at like currently, like that's more original material. And I think my goal is to try to use more original material. But how do I get around, like, how do I get away with it? I don't know. I think it's because I'm super obscure and nobody knows what I'm doing or cares, really. I don't know. I've helped myself to a lot of imagery. I do feel a lot of guilt sometimes, but I use a lot of, okay, here's where we go. Okay. A lot of the imagery I use in my books, it's from advertising, old advertising, like sometimes like 100 years old. Like, from like, I was getting a lot of stuff from Yukon archives using pamphlets, and I just, you use your like common sense and your own intuition. Again, back to intuition. It's just like, I feel like I can use this. Like, that person was paid. I think it's okay for me to, like, it's like, does that make sense? Like, if someone was, I would never, ever, I will say this, I will never steal from another artist. Like, never, 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 never. I don't copy other artists ever. I try to use like source material that's more, oh gosh, what's the word?
Fair use stuff.
Thank you, Kathy. Fair use. Yeah, exactly.
And I do think having been at many copyright workshops in the past, I think altering them enough where it becomes your own work is sort of the main practice that is recognized as collage and recognized as an art practice unto its own that isn't just stealing somebody's work. It is reusing it and mashing it up and turning it into something that's yours. So exactly, even that image of Diana, I think you have done that. I think you have done that. You've turned it into your own.
Thanks.
So another question from Susanna. Do you think it's possible to make art-based books and get them published without being a digital artist, i.e. having a primarily analog practice?
Oh, I think that's even better to do. Yeah, because I've gone back, because like all those rookie collages I was doing I was all digital. I mean, I was scanning again, back to the scanner. I highly recommend having a scanner. I was doing combos, like doing a bit of both. But since I stopped doing digital collage, now I'm back to doing it by hand. So getting a book published? It's an analog. Yeah, why not? That sounds great. Can you finish the question again or remind me?
Yeah, just if you think it's possible to get art-based books made, I guess artist-made books. But maybe, because I know I'd asked you this a few weeks ago, like how did you get, you'd say, your books published? I mean, you mentioned it already a bit in your talk, but maybe some advice for someone who is making a book right now. How would you approach a publisher or find a place to get this work published?
Oh gosh, you and me both. I have no idea at this point. Everything's so different now in 2023. Like, I don't know, this whole landscape. Honestly, I mean, I guess get an agent, or I've never had one. I don't know. I honestly too, I feel like self-publishing is the way to go at this point. I think whatever I do next, I may have to self-publish it. Right. For like, yeah, and do the distro. I don't know. I wish I had an answer for that question. I could think on it, and I was kind of bracing myself for this, and I'm like, I don't know how to answer this at this point.
Well, have you been, I know, like, say Emily Carr hosts a artist book fair.
Oh yeah. Yes.
And I'm sure there's others in others, like that's just the one I know of in Vancouver, but I'm sure there's other cities that host similar things. And I would say the majority of those people are self-published that are at a table selling wares. So I see that still happening, and I'm sure publishers probably go and check out those types of festivals.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think going back to grassroots, like word of mouth, like just one-on-one, and like I mentioned, Toronto Comics and Arts Festival, like that's it's open, like the spectrum of folks who show work at that. I mean, and hundreds of tables, and you can meet people there. And I mean, there's one in Seattle this weekend. It's soon. It's called Short Run, I think. Anyway, there's a whole circuit. And it's, once you kind of plug into that, it's amazing. You're kind of, well, not set, but there is a circuit. And tabling, I didn't even know what that was till I went to TCAF. I'm like, what's tabling? Because I was so used to doing craft fairs.
Right.
Yeah. And I was selling books at craft fairs. So I mean, there's different things. I mean, yeah, I didn't mention this, but I've done a lot of the distro myself, like hustling, and like, you know, I used to take books into bookstores just to consign them. It's a little harder now, I'm finding. It's like, oh, you need to, there's a lot of gatekeeping going on, but there are ways, and I'm working really hard to try to figure out new ways. So I'm happy to share whatever I come up with, because again, it's a new landscape now. It's getting tricky, but there are ways.
And there's definitely, I think, a healthy scene in Vancouver of comic books and self-published and zines. So there are a lot of fairs out there that they might sell themselves as a craft fair, but really there's a lot of books being sold at these craft fairs.
Yeah, Vancouver Comics and Arts Festival is so fun. I did that a couple of years ago too. That was amazing. Highly recommend.
Great. Connecting back to that thread about digital, Rebecca had a question. Starting your work when the internet was relatively new, how do you feel our current digital age has affected or changed your practice?
Oh gosh, I'm so bad at answering questions. I don't know. My brain can't like process the question. Can you help me, Kathy, translate that? Like, I don't quite understand.
Well, because you were kind of at the start of, I'm thinking like back to Rookie Mag, you know, when blogging was new and people could become superstars just with a blog, which was an odd new thing back then. I'm sure that era changed your work when you were working with Rookie Mag. And then how do you think it's kind of continued just, you know, with the internet, or you say you're going more analog. So, you know, has it all impacted your work in some way as we keep moving forward into this digital era?
Oh gosh, I don't even want to think about AI. I can't even go there, or NFTs. I'm like, what is this? I don't understand. Yeah, I don't know. Being Gen X, there's a part of me that is going to resist everything I can resist. Honestly, I just keep my head down and I just try to work like on my own. Like, again, I'm going to try to go back to working on a desk, like a smaller arena and like a little area, and just, I feel like again, full circle, like I'm retracing my steps and going back to where I started. I'm like, this is where it began. I feel like I can start again, if that makes sense. I feel like it is kind of a blank slate. People want tactile things. People want to hold things in their hands. That's why these zine fairs and comics festivals, that's why they're so important. And there's a real need for it. And I was really, when my mom was sick and I was dealing with all this family stuff, I felt completely off the radar. Like I had no idea what was going on. I didn't even know there was a zine resurgence happening. And I coming out of that, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I had no idea. Like, and there's a lot going on out there offline. Yeah, I mean, everyone's jumping ship off like social media. Like Instagram is kind of a nightmare. Like I go on there and I'm just like, this is all ads. I can't even find my friends. Like, this is horrible. Like, what are we going to do now? Mm-hmm. I don't know, something needs to change because this is not working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely changing, and we'll see what the next thing is. I just wanted to read you a few comments about talking about your process again. You know, Keith was saying, I'm so impressed with your uncompromising work as an artist, and how your work is about process. Looking at your work, the process is there. So these are not just nice, discrete objects to look at, but more of experiencing a cosmos, not to sound corny. But I think, yeah, like that really speaks about your process. It is circuitous, you know, it's self-referential, it's very personal. You've often talked about the overshare, but I think that's just so much of the times as well, through the past few decades even. But I can see how, yeah, the whole process comes together to build a whole world, which is really fascinating with your work. I see a lot of other people are appreciating and saying thank you for sharing everything. We had one last question before we go, so I'm gonna, because it's from Susan.
Susan Farmer?
Yes, we have to include Susan's question.
She's a plant. I told her to ask this question. Oh,
okay. Well, her question is, do you have a preference for working in black and white or color? And does the process differ with different options? Which I think is a great, because this work behind me is just color compared to if you walk into another wall in the gallery, it's all black and white. So how does that differ for you?
That is an excellent question. I was talking earlier just about like moods and just like the selves, like facets of your personality needing to do different types of work and needing to express in a different way. Like I'm, oh, I'm going to do some painting now, or I'm going to only work in black and white. Like I just feel like it just satisfies different parts of a person. And I don't know, the black and white, I mean, again, I've talked about this like at the gallery, just about black and white thinking, and then moving, like trying to do more grayscale, like bringing in like just not to have black and white thinking, and then moving into color and using a spectrum of color and then integrating it. It is like I really tried to do that with the show, with the graphic imagery, and then using like that. To me, I that was kind of the goal, is to sort of merge these facets and voices and selves, like to not be so fragmented. So I think that, I mean, that's I've been through this. Like there's been a lot of fragmentation that's gone on over time, and then kind of pulling yourself back together. Yeah. I don't, oh, my preference. What's my preference? Well, right now it's black and white. Really into black and white.
Right.
Love it. It just simplifies everything. It's like, that's one thing I was going to say about getting, like, if you're stuck or if you're getting started, is to just limit your materials. Like I remember reading something about Miranda July. She still does quite a bit of art, and she'll just kind of close herself off and only use black ink. That's it. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's amazing. How inspiring. Just one material. Yeah. Start that way.
I think that's a really great way to end tonight. Simplify. After we got to see all this very diverse, amazing work from you. So yeah, well, thank you so much, Sonja. It was so great to get a better sort of insight into your process and into your work. Thank you everyone out there who joined us tonight, for all your questions, for all your comments. And yes, someone's mentioned the November 4th event. We have a big event coming up. Hope you can all join us. It's November 4th, Saturday afternoon, book launch, closing party. Sonja will sign your book for you. We are having live music by Necking, which will be amazing. I don't think we've ever had a punk rock band in the gallery, so this will be really fun. And we're going to be making some zines as well. So if you want to check out some zine making, some live music, meet Sonja, come out and join us on November 4th. So I hope you can all join us then. If also, please come check out the show, because it will be closing November 5th. So have a look in person. It's a lot of small things to look at, so you can't look at it online, I'm afraid. You're going to have to come in person and like check out her binders, check out her zines, and all the little bits and pieces that make up the show. It is really amazing once you get up close and personal. So again, thank you everyone out there. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Sonja, and I'm sure I'll see you very soon.
Yay. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you everyone who's here and listened to me ramble. And I would love it if you came to the closing party. That would be so special. I would love that. And then we can make a zine together. Yay.
Awesome. Sounds great. All right. Thanks everyone. Have a good night.
You.